Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host for the next 2 hours of radio right here on Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com. And you are in the right place at the right time for what is going to be an absolutely mind-blowing Kev Baker show, because I am joined today by one of our favourite guests. And I say that because I know today's guest has made a really long and lasting impression on a lot of the audience out there. It's not very often that audience members really take the time to get in touch and to, compliment the guests that we get on. But from time to time, some people do come onto the show, and it certainly prompts people to get in touch and to tell me that it was brilliant. And that's because today, folks, we're joined by Ryan Gable. But we'll get to that in just a moment, okay? Because I'm really excited about the end of the week as well. And it's a mutual friend of both myself and Ryan. Brad Olson is going to be coming on to the Kev Baker show on Thursday. We're going to be taking a journey to the bottom of the world. Yes, we'll be kind of catching up with Brad on his recent trip to the South Pole. He went to Antarctica, and we're going to find out all about it on Thursday. We'll get into his modern esoterica works as well. So lots to look forward to there. But back to tonight. And this is a show that's really been quite a long time in the making. I know a lot of people out there have been waiting to hear what myself and Ryan have to say about the latest season of Stranger Things. And in Stranger Things 3, we can really see that the lines between fact and fiction are becoming so blurred, it's unrecognizable. And the Stranger Things franchise burst onto our screens via Netflix back in July 2016. And since then, it's been a worldwide phenomenon. And like I say, the most recent outing, see, Stranger Things 3 was released on July the 4th this year. Now, for those who don't know, maybe you've just arrived back from some other kind of dimension. That'll definitely be appropriate for tonight. Maybe you're just calling by on a time kind of travel mission. I don't know, but I'd have to wonder what you've been up to if you haven't heard of Stranger Things. But maybe you haven't. Maybe you're not into TV shows. And Stranger Things is set in the fictional rural town of Hawkins, Indiana, during the early 1980s. The nearby Hawkins National Laboratory ostensibly performs scientific research for the United States Department of Energy, but secretly does experiments into the paranormal and supernatural, including those that involve human test subjects. Now, inadvertently, by mistake, they have created a portal to an alternate dimension. And in the show, that's called the Upside Down. Now, the influence of the Upside Down starts to affect the unknowing residents of Hawkins in the most calamitous of ways. And the portal that I mentioned there from the fictional TV show by the Duffer Brothers was created by accident when the Department of Energy were conducting other experiments. So if I take you back to the real world now, and on the same day, July the 4th, we had news breaking about an experiment that the Department of Energy were intending to run at the Oak Ridge National Labs. And what they were seeking to do was to prove or disprove the existence of another dimension by way of creating quantum portals. Now, as you can see, just by this small little snapshot I've given you into the strange and weird blurring of fact and fiction, things are starting to get confusing. You don't know what's in the real world and what's in fiction anymore. And it seems to me that more of reality has been hidden in plain sight, be it Stranger Things or a whole lot more other programs that we will probably mention tonight. But we really need to be careful, folks, because we've spoke about portals opening at CERN. Last night on the show, I was talking about the potential for a natural portal opening in the Highlands of Scotland. And it really is now a time, that I'm calling Stranger Times we are living in. Because once these portals are open, and we've opened them, well, it's like a two-way journey. We can go into that dimension and manipulate things in there, as we've heard from Geordie Rose and others. And that works the other way as well. By the time we're finished tonight, you'll be wishing that it was only the monsters that we see in Netflix shows, because some of the entities that are now roaming around in our reality are certainly scarier than anything Stranger Things has to offer. And I think a good way of thinking about this is the road from Hawkins to hell is paved with portals. So Ryan, welcome to the show, my friend. That was a long-winded introduction, but I've been excited about this show tonight, dude. And I know you have. Stranger Things 3, man. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing fantastic, Kev. Thank you for having me on the show, and I've been very excited about tonight's broadcast as well. We've been meaning to set it up for a while. We've all talked about this on our own shows, and now we get the chance to talk about it together.
Absolutely. So Stranger Things 3, we'll start with the kind of the fictional side of things, what's going on here. And I must admit, I was slightly disappointed with season 2, but I think season 3, for any Stranger Things fans out there, was really getting back to what won us over in the first place. And I was saying to you that the Duffer Brothers, the way that they've made this whole show, it feels like we're being transported back in time to the 80s when this TV show's been set.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job overall with the art direction and the consistency of the show being put together with everything from the 1980s, from the cars to the clothes to the music. Once in a while, there's a little thing, you mess up here or there, but otherwise, that's one of the nostalgic things about Stranger Things that I think so many people, especially people who grew up in the 80s, really enjoy about the television show. And I agree with you about season 2. I was a little bit disappointed in season 2, especially the episode where one of the main characters, not to spoil it, but one of the main characters goes to find some of her other friends or people that she had been experimented on with, other people who had powers. I thought that was a long, drawn-out episode. And in season 3, they cut some of the fat off, but they still had a few scenes where there was just some unnecessary commentary that was more like virtue signaling to an audience about a girl being gay. I thought that was unnecessary. But overall, I didn't necessarily love it. I still like the classic first season, but there are some things in this season, just like in season 2, that are really, really important. And if you don't understand the first season or the second season, season 3 will just seem like another television show. But it's more than just a television show, especially because you alluded to this July 4th announcement from Oak Ridge National Laboratory, one of the 3 labs that worked on the Manhattan Project. Oak Ridge is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Energy, one of the only laboratories in the country that's larger than the 3 major laboratories that worked on the Manhattan Project, Hanford in Washington, Los Alamos, and Oak Ridge, is the Idaho National Laboratory. That's something that your listeners could look into. I actually did a show on that a couple of years ago. But as you said, at Oak Ridge, they're attempting to experiment and to peer into another world, not by opening a portal and stepping through it with some type of hazmat-like suit on, but they're going to try to detect particles that have oscillated out of this dimension. And they've speculated that they've oscillated out of this dimension into another and then back into this dimension. And to start us off immediately right into the heart of this matter, Kev, if you read the article, the one I have here is from The Independent. The article says the new experiment will fire a beam of neutrons at an impenetrable wall. On the other side of the wall, a neutron detector will be set up, which normally would expect to detect nothing. But if the detector does register the presence of neutrons, the theory is that they may have gone through the wall by oscillating into the mirror world, becoming mirror neutrons, and reappearing in this universe, and more specifically, the lab in Tennessee, which is Oak Ridge. Now, the first line of that is the most important, in my opinion. The new experiment will fire a beam of neutrons at an impenetrable wall. And in the 3rd season of Stranger Things, even if you watch the preview, no spoilers, You see that the Russians attempt to open the portal in Hawkins, because that's where the portal had been opened before, and they do it by firing a beam that they don't really describe what it is, a beam of energy at a wall, in the same fashion that Oak Ridge in theme is going to do to peer into the mirror world, Kev.
Absolutely, Ryan. And it's the kind of symbology, like you were saying, in the TV show, this thing looks like a cross-section. It looks like they've cut one of the pipes at CERN, and it looks like the end of a particle accelerator. And whatever they're firing at this wall, this opening to the upside down, which had been opened previously, very reminiscent of the particle accelerators I've spoken about a lot with Anthony Patch. And like you say, on the same day that's released, we get this story from Oak Ridge National Laboratories. And when you look at some of the fan websites out there, folks, you'll find that aside from Montauk, somewhere in the real world that was doing government experimentation, there's a lot of fans out there that think that the Hawkins National Laboratory is actually based upon Oak Ridge Labs. Now, whether it is or whether it isn't, the fact that in the real world they're basically doing something like we see in Stranger Things 3, it's absolutely mind-blowing, dude. And this is a common theme throughout Stranger Things. The existence of these other dimensions, the upside down, as they call it in the show. And this is one crossover between fact and fiction, because the upside down, many worlds, call these parallel realities what you may. They're very, very, very real, Ryan. And right now, we're using technology to try and access these very dimensions, the same as we see in the show.
Yeah, and I think that those dimensions have already been accessed, but now with Oak Ridge openly sponsoring this type of experiment, it's becoming mainstream enough to, like a cell phone, like the internet, give it to the public. But this kind of thing has been going on in black budget programs and in off-the-book scientific experimentation for a very, very, very long time. In fact, this type of tampering with the laws of nature has been going on since the beginning of recorded time. I think about, because you asked me the other day about Aleister Crowley, and you said you had been to the Belinsky house recently again, right?
Yes, I have. Yes, I was back there at the weekend, Ryan. Didn't go into it this time. And again, probably my own consciousness, past experiences gave me a kind of air of foreboding going to the place. But we went to visit it because it's back in the news again, because this is going to be renovated and opened up as a Aleister Crowley Centre, that people can visit from all over the world.
And Aleister Crowley was supposedly the reincarnation of Edward Kelly. Edward Kelly was the assistant to Dr. John Dee. And the story goes that Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly attempted to, and they did supposedly succeed in communicating with a series of angels or daemons that gave them the keys to unlock the watchtowers or the gates that would allow legions of demons to come into our world. It would initiate the apocalypse. But no angel, no demon, nobody knew when the apocalypse would be unleashed, just that they had been given the keys and that certain people would know how to insert and turn those keys. And Aleister Crowley, I believe, was one of those people, along with people like Jack Parsons, one of the founders of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and, of course, people like L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. And the work that they did alone in the 40s, along with the Philadelphia Project in 1943, just a couple of days ago, we had the anniversary of the 1945, July 16th, 1945, 5:29 a.m., Trinity bomb detonated in New Mexico at White Sands. Arguably not the first atomic bomb detonated even in modern times, because the Germans had tested atomic weaponry, what they called the disintegration bomb. They even had experimented and had theorized, and they had run the German Luftwaffe, the Air Force had run an experiment or some kind of a test to see what would happen if they dropped a 16-kiloton nuclear bomb over Manhattan. And then that's the same actual kiloton bomb that was dropped on one of the cities. I believe it was Hiroshima, the uranium bomb. So likely that was actually a German-Japanese bomb. But the point is, 1945, You have the first atomic bomb detonated officially. You have the alchemical experiment that was performed there with this large jumbo container being brought in, kind of like an egg or kind of like an alchemical vessel by which to summon Aleister Crowley's Moonchild or the homunculus, the little man, the egregore, this little person, the artificial life. And then a few years after that, when Aleister Crowley died, he died in 1947. And what did we have in 1947? We had the infamous Roswell crash. So there are a lot of things that lead up to modern day ufology. And I believe that modern day ufology is really a study of demonology in so many ways. And going back to Edward Kelly, going back to Dr. John Dee, and so many others that have attempted to open portals to other worlds, open portals to other dimensions, open portals to hell, as Aleister Crowley attempted to do. Some do it intentionally, some do it in part by mistake. And in Stranger Things, you see that the United States government in remote viewing experiments, so you have that as well, and you have the Philadelphia Project mentioned, which dealt with wormholes being open, teleportation, things like that, because in season 2, when one of the main characters is possessed, Will is possessed, his mom talks to him and says, you drew these big ships, and they were your ships, and they were rainbow ships. Well, that's the code name for the Philadelphia Project, Project Rainbow. So you have all that incorporated in Stranger Things. You have the remote viewing. That's how they accidentally open the portal. Then they go a step too far. They peer into the portal. They open the portal. They step into the portal. And by the end of season 2, they close the portal. But in season 3, the Russians want to reopen the portal, and they do that by doing exactly what Oak Ridge National Laboratory is planning on doing right now in the real world. The point, I think, is, Kev, this kind of thing has been done for a very, very, very long time. Now the public gets to see what's been going on behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And in recent times, I've been trying to concentrate more on the science, on the nuts and bolts of what's been going on, Ryan. But that doesn't mean I'm naive to the fact that these things are so compartmentalized and multiple layers at work at once that not everybody is aware of the deeper, darker intentions of what's going on. And the scientist, Leah Broussard, I would put her into that category as well. I'm sure she is just in the pursuit of science that would undoubtedly put her in line for a Nobel Prize, should she actually do this experiment and prove the Mirrorverse, something that we do know is there. But we know that places like Oak Ridge Labs and CERN and all these other places, Ryan, again, it's that compartmentalization. And I know that you've spoke about this on your recent show about all of this as well. You factored in Geordie Rose. I think we could throw in Elon Musk as well. It's not that these people are evil incarnate. In fact, they might be victims of these same entities that lie on the other side. They're basically being used as tools, and it's been dressed up as original ideas and scientific inspiration coming from somewhere. But really, they're being led down a dark path, and they're being deceived as well.
That's been my personal view on it. It was really enlightening listening to you interview Geordie Rose, and we learned that Geordie was not accepted into college, and he wasn't a popular guy necessarily. And then he builds the first quantum computer. Now everybody wants a piece of that. They all want a piece of him now. But he's just a guy with a family. And Elon Musk, I get a very similar impression. This guy, at least in the videos I've seen him talk, I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk. He has a general, almost like a stutter sometimes. He's not necessarily sure what he's saying. He kind of looks like he's sweating or he's uncomfortable when he gives talks. There's something about these guys, these science celebrities, the Ray Kurzweils, Peter Diamandis, who says you'll merge with these machines or you will die, which sounds like a threat more than a warning. There's something about them that, sure, they're average people. They could be very decent people, family people, but there's something, I think, like you said, influencing them on another level. And then, in fact, if you read the stories of Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly believed that the angels were deceiving John Dee. He was the medium by which that carried out these spiritual transactions, we can call them. He believed that the angels were deceiving John Dee, and that many of the people, I believe, that think they're obtaining power, we see this a lot in the music industry as well, I think we're going to get into tonight. They think they're obtaining power from these demons, and you can read stories throughout history about demonic possession and making deals and pacts, witches and the devil, or people like priests making deals with the devil. making deals with demons. They think that they obtain power, and they do temporarily, but that power at some point goes away. And in order to prevent themselves from falling into the end of that contract, which includes the loss of their soul, and in some cases, some stories, a brutal death at the hands of the demon who laughs and arrogantly enjoys the murder of this human being, the human being attempts to do things to extend the contract, which takes them into the most perverse and diabolic things that a human being could do, like murdering children, raping children, torturing children, blood sacrifice, human sacrifice, not metaphorically, but literal. And we see a lot of that now coming out in the news more than ever, from the Nexium cult to Jeffrey Epstein. This is the kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Just like the experiments into other worlds, we also have things that go on behind the scenes where people, I believe, are fully possessed by demonic entities, and others are influenced by those entities. They're influenced by, if you watch the show Black Mirror, there's a really great scene in the episode Bandersnatch where one of the characters says, you think you're making your own decisions, but you're not. It's the spirit out there making the decisions for you. And it was a metaphor for you making a decision what to do in the show, because it's interactive, or you making a decision on what to watch on Netflix. But it's not really your decision, because the AI knows, the algorithms know what you want to watch, so it suggests what you should watch next. And Netflix, the AI, ultimately becomes the kid with the controller. You become the machine. It's a bait and switch.
Absolutely. And the Black Mirror thing, we've spoke about this before. I was thinking about this again today. Even the consumption of something like Netflix, we're doing it on our TVs, we're doing it on our smartphones, we're doing it on our tablets. And we've spoke about this, I mean, what is our tablets? Essentially, you turn everything off and it's a black mirror. And of course, these black mirrors themselves, highly magical. Portals. I heard you talking about how they are basically windows or entrances, portals to travel in time as well. And that's what really struck me, because the one thing that really, if I was to describe Stranger Things to anyone, away from all of the other dimensions and all of the stuff we like to talk about on shows like this, it's the fact that if you are my kind of age, if you did grow up in the 80s, like I was saying to you before the show, it's like you're transported back there. And here we are being transported back via our black mirrors, Ryan. You couldn't make it up.
No, you couldn't. In Bandersnatch, remember, that took place in 1984, so that took place in the mid-'80s as well. It transported us back to that time period. And the Black Mirrors, for those listeners who might not know, I'm sure you've explained this before, the practice of something called scrying. Scrying is a practice by which you stare into a black mirror and you attempt to contact some other type of otherworldly entity. And in doing that, you attempt or hope that you will gain insight into future events, which is why Black Mirror is called Black Mirror, because most of their shows foretell a future in which there is a technological tyranny and a very dystopian way of life for the characters, whether that's the social credit score episode or it's the die-off of the bees and the electronic bees that have to be created to pollinate the world, and then those bees are hijacked. And a lot of the stuff is futuristic in a sense, but it's also very real. And it's the same thing with Stranger Things. It might be not futuristic, it's in the past, but the things that were being showed, I'm sure most of your listeners have heard this at some point, the entire show was based off of the Montauk Project. It was going to be called Montauk. That was the name of the show. They were going to film it in New York, and they were told no, so they went to this fictional town of Hawkins in Indiana. That's where they created this town where they had the portal open to the upside down world. But the whole thing is based on remote viewing. That's how they opened the portal. It's based on the Department of Energy working in other dimensions. The secretary for the DOE even said, we do work in parallel worlds. I know you have the sound clip of that. We've played it many times on my show as well. You have the Philadelphia experiment, which deals in portals and time travel and things like that. And that also supposedly from the 1940s opened a portal to what? The 1980s.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Stranger Times, from Hawkins to Hell. That's what we're getting into tonight with Ryan Gable from thesecretteachings.info. That's all one word, thesecretteachings.info. And Ryan, before we launch back into this dimensional extravaganza, I'm loving this, dude. I truly am. Let people know when they can hear your show, other places they can get your books. We've got the Technological Elixir. We have also, yeah, that's the one, isn't it? We've also got Food Philosophy and Occult Arcana. There you go. Remembered off the top of my head.
Thanks, Kev. So, yeah, the website is thesecretteachings.info, www.thesecretteachings.info. My show is Monday through Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on the Fringe FM. The Fringe.fm is the network website. And my show tonight is called Confessions of a Mind-Controlled Pop Star. It's about the life of Miley Cyrus and about her reenactment of that life in the episode of Black Mirror about a mind-controlled pop star. And Miley Cyrus in real life even said they basically took my life and turned it into a show. So, of course, I had to play the part when they gave me the script. So we'll talk about that tonight. And then tomorrow night, and both of these shows connect directly with what we're discussing tonight, Stranger Times on KBS. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the abduction of Billie Eilish. And I don't mean an alien abduction. I don't mean some UFO abduction. I mean the actual abduction of a human being's soul. I believe that this girl, who is just getting her start in the music industry, you can look her up. I sincerely believe she is possessed by a demon. And those demons, the demonology, the occult elements to this, the mythology, all of that is what I've put into my book, Occult Arcana. And that book, as you mentioned, is available on my website. It's a massive book. All of the details are in there. And it will help, if you read it, it'll help you to understand the basis for these things like Stranger Things, the basis for a lot of what the music industry produces for music videos, movies, TV shows, a lot of the darker elements. Like if you watched the new Sabrina, it'll help you to understand more what is being portrayed there. And then to get into the more popular culture aspect of it, my other book is The Technological Elixir, and that deals with artificial intelligence and black goo, which is also very important to tonight's conversation. And that is a subject that I go into great detail about in The Technological Elixir, along with various pop stars and various musicians in the music industry, breaking it all down just like we're breaking Stranger Things down here tonight on The Kev Baker Show.
Stranger Things, Black Goo, Ryan Gable, talk about a recipe for an absolutely amazing Kev Baker Show. And we've been talking about the blurring of the lines between fact and fiction. And one of the cornerstones of the storyline of Stranger Things is the fact that the Department of Energy are running secret experiments using people, child kind of participants in the show, like we've seen Declassified and whistleblowers talking about MK Ultra, what went on at Montauk, places like that. And for anyone out there who might think that we're pushing things, and it might be a stretch, to take an experiment that's running at Oak Ridge National Laboratories and then connect that to the fictional world of Hawkins and Stranger Things. Well, there's a one clip in particular that I always like to go back to, and Ryan as well, because it's one thing hearing us connecting these random dots and presenting our theory to you, but it's another thing altogether when you hear the guy who heads the Department of Energy admitting everything that we're talking about. Okay, Ryan, there is something wrong with Skype because even the audience aren't hearing that tonight, but we can get people to easily check that out. All you do is go over to YouTube. It's called Stranger Things, More Fact Than Fiction, and it comes from the Chelsea Handler show. And it was after season 1. We had a number of the cast there that were talking about Stranger Things. And then, like I was saying, we had the head of the Department of Energy right there admitting that just like in the show Stranger Things, they do work in other dimensions. Now, albeit when he's talking about these other dimensions, we're talking about the quantum level and the fact that the Department of Energy admittedly have a D-Wave computer that again accesses parallel realities on the quantum level, just like we see on the macro in Stranger Things. So Ryan, we're obviously having an audio glitch. It might be my end actually, after me thinking it was your end. But it's an infamous clip, and it certainly backs up everything that we're claiming here on this show today. The Department of Energy are very much working with other dimensions.
Let me see if I can get it to play. Can you hear this if I click play on my end?
No, can't hear it.
Okay, so yeah, there must be an issue there.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, you're right. That was back in 2016. And the statement is that they do work in, it's Ernest Moniz, the Secretary of Energy. They do work in parallel worlds. So what they're acknowledging might not be what you think if you're watching Stranger Things, like they're opening an actual portal and the Demogorgon is coming through. A lot of it's metaphoric, a lot of it's symbolic. But the notion that they're doing, at least in theme, what this show portrays, and this show is also based on military experiments at Montauk, just like the mind control experiments of MK Ultra on people who were mentally ill, people who were homeless, children, the attempt to amplify psychic abilities, the remote viewing experiments. And those are the things that are all portrayed in Stranger Things. And I find it interesting, Kev, that when you watch Stranger Things, I've talked to some people recently who didn't know this about Stranger Things, and they really like the show. And I said, do you know what the show is based on? And they said, no, what do you mean based? It's not based on anything. It's just a show. And I said, no, it's based on, and I explained the details to them about Montauk, and I showed it to them. I showed them the, certain declassified documents. I showed them some of the official, declassified projects like the Philadelphia Project or Project Rainbow, which is a big theme in Stranger Things. And the one person I showed it to looked at me and said, wow, that's really incredible. I had no idea that the thing was based off it. I just thought it was some show on Netflix. But it's that powerful. So many people pay attention and watch this. I think somewhere deep down, Kev, call it a 100th monkey experiment or call it human intuition, collectively connected. Something deep down tells us this is real, and that's why it's so popular. That's why it's so powerful. It's the same thing with the X-Files and so many other shows of a similar nature. That's my view, though.
No, I agree with you. And can you still hear me, Ryan? You can hear me okay, yeah?
Yes,
yeah,
I can.
I found it was Fringe as well, and also Lost. We've seen with those two shows, them starting to really incorporate, albeit theoretical, physics, but it was things that were actually being tested in the laboratories that might have seemed a bit far out there, parallel realities and all the things going on in Lost as well. But there was a podcast that ran alongside Lost, and that was the thing, because all of these weird things that J.J. Abrams was showing in that show were actually coming from theoretical physics white papers. So I think there is something that's appealing to the public when you blend or blur the lines between fact and fiction, when you hide things in plain sight. That may be a better way of actually putting it. I'm going to try and play this clip one more time, Ryan. You can let me know if you hear this right away. I've changed one of my settings. Hopefully that'll get us going now. We'll know pretty much straight away if you can hear this, so let's try it.
I have a curious question for you.
You hear
I
that?
don't know if you ever saw Stranger Things. Have you guys paid attention to this phenomenon? So on the show, they have a Department of Energy, and they spend a lot of time investigating a parallel universe. What can you tell us about that?
I can tell you, first of all, that I've never seen it, but I'm aware of it. Secondly, I believe this fictional DOE laboratory was operating in the 1980s. You can draw whatever inference you wish from that. Third, I will note that actually we do work in parallel universes.
Wait, what? Do you really?
Is that
Yes.
So we can just pause that there. He goes on to explain, a little bit deeper on that. But that clip, I think that's one of those timeless clips. It's like Carol Rosen and the last card when she's talking about working with Von Braun. I mean, this here's as good as evidence as I can think to back up what we're saying, Ryan.
Yeah, I like how Chelsea Handler cuts in and says, well, like she's going to tell the guy that runs the Department of Energy that he's wrong.
Yeah, she's definitely is the all-knowing expert on all things multiverse.
Yeah, that reminds me of Michio Kaku. I think it was on CBS News where he said, "Yeah, and we've used weather control to do things during Vietnam." And they're like, and then the news anchor cuts in, "No, allegedly you did that." He's like, "Okay, allegedly." It's declassified.
Just you tell Michio how to think, what to say.
Yeah.
You know, if we get back to this as well, I was saying to you during the break, there are other parallels between the real world and what we see in Stranger Things. And one of the ones that we've spoke about on the show here before, maybe not me and you personally, but we've certainly brought it up over the time. I work with Charlie Robinson, somebody you've done a show with. And he talks about the octopus of global control. And this octopus, this tentacle symbology, again shows up in Stranger Things. You know, we've got the Demigorgon, and we see it in multiple seasons, this tentacled entity. Now, where does this exist in the real world? I hear people saying, well, me and you have done a show about Slender Man before. And when you look at the art for Slender Man, correct me if I'm not, Ryan, but it's the same kind of symbology that you see there as you see in Stranger Things. Wouldn't you agree?
It absolutely is, Kev. I've done so many shows on this. I did a show about Slender Man being him, capital H-I-M, his infernal majesty, which is the devil or Satan. I talked with Clyde Lewis on a show about that where we discussed him. That's a theme that you actually see in the Slender Man movie, where the girls are trying to get their friend back who's been taken, just like in Stranger Things. They're young kids, not as young as in Stranger Things, but they're young girls. And they're talking to a girl on an internet chat room platform. And the girl says, you can get your friends back, but it depends on what you are willing to give him, capital H-I-M. That's the same him that's in the Powerpuff Girls, this old show from the 90s about these three girls who have superpowers. And one of their enemies is the devil. And his name is him, capital H-I-M. And that's the same him from Lady Gaga's video about how you are okay the way that you are. You're all right the way that God made you. But she says him. It doesn't matter if you love him or capital H-I-M. It doesn't matter if you love him, lowercase, God, or if you love him, the devil, capital H-I-M, and her voice becomes distorted. Him is Slender Man. Momo is Slender Man. They're different manifestations of the same force. And you see that in Stranger Things because you have the demi-dog, you have the demigorgon, you have this very large creature that is made of human body parts and chemicals in the third season, and it's controlled by the shadow monster from the upside down world that's able to communicate through these conduits as long as the portal is open. And yes, those tentacles are metaphoric in a lot of ways, but in other ways, I think that they're more than metaphor. I think in some ways they're almost literal, depending on what kind of information you're looking at. But to answer your question, yes, we see this, and it's a parallel universe, a parallel world. We see this across the board. We see it in movies, television. We see it in music videos. We see it in kids shows, adult movies, kids movies. We see it everywhere, and it's the tentacles. We even saw it in Bird Box. And that was basically what you take the blindfold off. You see the monsters, they have the tentacles, and then you commit suicide. It's an internet challenge. That's what Momo was, commit suicide. It's all over the place, Kev.
Even that other Netflix show that I highly recommend to people, The OA. We have a scene in that where the main character is literally communicating or being a conduit for an ancient octopus to talk through. So, I mean, this whole symbology, it runs deep, it runs far. And again, hiding things in plain sight. Now, back in season 3 here of Stranger Things, we see how this entity is basically able to control people. For lack of a better term, it takes them over, it possesses them, and it uses them as a vehicle, and it uses them to gain its kind of nefarious ends. Now, I think we're starting to see similar things going on in the real world right now as well. And as we move into the musical side of things, as the show progresses, I think we'll definitely be able to demonstrate that. But if we go back in time first, Ryan, and look at John Dee and people like that, and the attempts to create these golems, these kind of husks to be indwelt by entities not from this reality. Again, we're seeing the parallels between what we see in the show and what we've seen in real life as well.
Yeah, it's really incredible, Kev, when you look at, and I'll give you an example that might seem totally unrelated. If you look at music videos, television, movies, and you start to see this, if you pay attention, this trend, other people are paying so close attention they don't recognize what they're looking at, pushing things like the transgender LGBTQ XYZ movement, like it's a whole movement. And I don't care if you're trans, I don't care if you're gay, that doesn't matter to me. But my question is, why is it that a group of people that make up less than 1% of the population, those that are considered trans, have hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in entertainment and in constant media coverage? Somebody is paying for that. Somebody is subsidizing that because that's the agenda for whatever the reason might be. And I think it's the same thing when we look at music and television and movies, et cetera, et cetera. Something, maybe not someone, but something is in the same way subsidizing those platforms. And they're saying, this is what we're going to do. This is the imagery that we're going to use. So you see all the musicians using the same imagery, the same types of clothing, the same types of lyrics, the same kinds of quote unquote metaphors to conceal it so you don't really know what you're looking at and it communicates to you on a subconscious level. We see the same thing in movies and television shows. That's where you get the parallel, as you're talking about, and you see it everywhere. And you wonder, why is this everywhere? This isn't like it's not like a popular thing. It's not like 90% of the population is into demonic possession or 90% of the population is confused about their gender. Other than virtue signaling for political reasons or social reasons or economic reasons, why is this so widespread? And there are a lot of examples we could use, but I think I just want to point that out to people that are listening. That's a really important element of this. Who or what is subsidizing and paying for all of this? And I don't mean necessarily paying with money. Something is creating this environment. And perhaps going back to Elon Musk and Geordie Rose and Ray Kurzweil and all the rest, something is working through people like Edward Kelly and John Dee and Aleister Crowley, L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, to bring this transformation about, to bring the apocalypse about. And what is the apocalypse? It's the great unveiling, like lifting the blindfold in Bird Box. And when we see the demons, we commit suicide. But it's fun to commit suicide. It's fun to be possessed by the demons. It's fun to live a life of debauchery. That's what's being sold. And that's what people are buying.
And you mentioned Crowley, and Crowley's somebody that I talk about a lot as well. And I'm not sure if it's Pan or Lamb, but he talks about this kind of a hoofed
lamb.
Yeah, lamb, like that entity, lamb. Now, that's very similar to what we see with the goat of Mendes, Baphomet. And you'll be the expert on this, dude, but isn't Baphomet like both male and female?
Yeah, Baphomet is hermaphroditic, exactly.
And here we have this kind of agenda being pushed, via popular culture in the real world. And I've said it time and time again, the audience probably fed up hearing me saying this, but I'm like you, Ryan. I have got absolutely no concern what people get up to, what choices they make in their adult life. Nothing to do with me. So I'm not criticizing anyone's lifestyle choice, but these people must recognize that their kind of lifestyle choice is being used as a vehicle for something far more nefarious. I'm sure they must realize that themselves.
I'd like to think that some people do realize that, but even talking to a few people the other day about Stranger Things, and they didn't, not that I expect everybody to know things. I pay attention to things because I'm learning and trying to figure out what's going on. But the average person I speak to has no clue what Stranger Things is based on. And that's a fun TV show. When it comes to more social, political, cultural issues, I really don't think the average person who is involved in those groups or movements thinks anything other than, in fact, the average person I speak to that can have a conversation, they sincerely believe that what they're doing is bringing about equality. And they think that what they're doing is the right thing to do. Everybody thinks what they're doing is the right thing to do, whether that's technology or LGBTQ rights or whatever the case might be. I really don't think the average person is concerned or even is aware. They just think what they're doing is a necessary function to bring about equality in the world, or whatever the case
It makes you wonder if this is the upside down then, right? Because
feels like it.
what you're describing there, it's an inversion of reality. Everything's back to front. People shouting for equality are actually pushing for something that is not very equal at all. So it's almost as if we're actually the ones in the upside down.
Yeah, and you know what? Just to use this as a segue into not necessarily the music industry, we will get to that, I think you said, but to use this as a parallel into like demonic possession. In the 19th century, one of the most common images associated with demonic possession was the classical arched back, something that you see in The Exorcism, and there are numerous depictions of this throughout history. People possessed by demons, and whether it's in an exorcism or when they're fully possessed, maybe it's at a black mass, their bodies become twisted and distorted, and their back arches, and their head turns upside down, and it bends the body into basically a U shape upside down. And any kind of possession is a distortion. And I think that whether or not you're talking about demonic possession or you're talking about technological assimilation from the brain to the computer, all of this is a distortion, and it's a conflict that's created that literally turns reality, as you said, upside down. And it causes so much confusion that it's one thing to not really know what we're doing in life and we just try to do things we think are right. It's another thing to intentionally confuse people and create absolute chaos. And I think that's what the demon legions, if you want to call them that, are doing. That's the intention of the work of the devil.
Absolutely, dude. And this whole possession thing, that is a good segue into the aspect or the character within the music industry that you kind of highlighted to me today. And I first became aware of this character that we're going to speak about in a moment. And I call her a character because I honestly don't know what I'm looking at, folks. And her name is Billie Eilish. Now, in one of her videos, Ryan, just like you described there, and I'm going to show it on screen now for people who watch afterwards, and I'm going to take a screenshot, so I'll drop it in the chat room over at tfrlive.com/chat. But this is from a video called Bury a Friend. Really cheery title to begin with. And towards the end of this video, and it looks like the hallway, the corridor out of The Shining. I don't know why I get that kind of that imagery hitting me.
Felt the same way when I saw it.
We see this girl, her back arched, all contorted, floating, levitating, as if she is a stereotypical possession in progress.
Have you ever seen the movie The Witch?
I have not, no.
I thought it was a really good movie. If you've not seen The Witch, there are other movies where this is depicted. But at the very end of this movie, there's a witch in the movie. There's actually a whole coven of witches in the woods. And this young girl goes into the woods after some stuff happens to her family, and she decides to basically join the coven to make a deal with the devil. And the very end of the movie, it's a similar kind of sound effect with the voices and this high-pitched noise that's in the video that you're describing. And you hear this sound, and the girl goes into the woods. That's the domain of Slender Man, by the way. And she takes her clothes off completely naked, and she starts levitating in the air with the other women. And that's exactly what we see in this video. This girl, she's not naked. Her clothes are ripped off at one point in the video, but she's levitating with her back arched at the end of the video. And that's just a tiny, that's the cheese on the sandwich. There's meat to go on the sandwich. There's all kinds of stuff. And then the bread.
When we come back after the break, like I say, the first time I came across this character was Bill Bean, and he was really beside himself. He was telling me I needed to check out this new pop sensation. Went out of my mind, never thought anything else of it. And then Ryan today says to me, Kev, you check this person out? My, oh my, when we come back after the break, folks, what a can of worms, or maybe a box of spiders we've opened up with this one right here. But Ryan, before we go to the break, my friend, let people know where they can find everything Ryan Gable related.
Yeah, there's a lot of fake stuff out there, a lot of really old stuff. People sell my books for a lot of money that's not real. Everything official is on the website, www.thesecretteachings.info. That's thesecretteachings.info. And the email is rdgable@yahoo.com.
Hour number 2 with Ryan Gable as my very special guest today. Remember, check out thesecretteachings.info, and that's thesecretteachings, all one word, .info. Head on over there, check out his show over on The Fringe FM. And Ryan, would I be right in saying for the month of July, you're running a special for people, right? I think if they subscribe to your channel or to The Fringe, do they not get a free book if they're in the US?
Yeah, with the yearly subscription to my archive on my website, you always get 3 digital copies of my books. So that's all of my books in digital form. But for the month of July, I'm giving away a physical copy of whichever book you choose. And it's autographed if you'd like. And it's free shipping in the United States. Anywhere else in the world, in Canada, it's like $10 extra for shipping. And even in Scotland, it's like $20. So yeah, that's the special. You get a free book, 3 digital books, and the yearly subscription with access to every single show at thesecretteachings.info.
Awesome stuff. And today, folks, we're talking about not Stranger Things, well, we are, but more Stranger Times, the road from Hawking to hell on this reality. And there's Ryan showing his latest work there, The Technological Elixir, Black Goo, Transhumanism, and Invoking the AI. And that's certainly going to factor in for our next segment, especially the Black Goo. Because in Stranger Things 3, Ryan, one of my favourite scenes of the whole show, apart from the ones that featured the very, very likeable Russian scientist that was in the show.
Smirnoff.
Yes, Smirnoff. My favourite vodka, may I add. But it was when Dustin was using his ham radio and his antenna, and they're trying to save the world, and they burst into a never-ending story, and they sing a full song, dude. And I don't know, there was just something about that. It was really kind of, I thought it was genius. Absolutely genius scene within the whole show. And it's that whole musical element that we're going into now. We touched upon it before the break. And we're talking about a new pop sensation, the newest kid on the block. She's new to me. And I was saying to Ryan before the show, you know, I probably gave up listening to music in the late 90s. Something went all wrong with it. Either I got old or music got broken. I don't know, maybe a bit of both. But this new kid, this new entity, and I think I'm going to have to call her an entity, Billie Eilish. Wow, even Anne's making noises beside me here when I say that name. Talk to me about how you came across this individual, Ryan.
Well, I'll tell you, entity might be the only word to describe her. And when she's doing interviews, otherwise, she has Tourette's in real life, and she's seems like a normal girl. It's important to recognize that she was like 15, 16 when she started this, and she's 17 right now. She's not even 18 yet, and she's releasing her first album this year. She's released all the songs, I think, already, but the album has come out, so it's available now. If you're interested in listening to it, let alone buying it, I don't know if I'd support that because of the content, but let me go into a little bit of the backstory very quickly here. It's important before we go to Billie Eilish to talk about somebody else who's very, very popular and who's in an episode of Black Mirror recently and who deals in robots and artificial intelligence in this episode. And that's Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus played a pop star and then a girl who was just a regular girl on the show Hannah Montana on the Disney Channel. And on that show, she would put on the blonde wig, and she'd go perform as Hannah Montana, and then she'd come home, and her dad, Billy Ray, was in the show. And she was frustrated trying to deal with living this double life. That's a Disney Channel show that ended in 2011, I believe. And Miley Cyrus actually just gave an interview to Ella, the cover story of Ella, the magazine, or Elle, that's how you pronounce it, E-L-L-E. She gave an interview where she said that once she turned 18, she finally had sex, which maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I feel like she's been a mind-controlled sex slave of the industry for a while, and she decided she really didn't want to play that that young girl, that young character anymore. So she disconnected from that. And like so many other pop stars that feel as if, and they express that they've broken free from that influence and that oppression, they become hypersexualized. More so than they had been before, more so than when they were 12 years old, more so than the like 13-year-old Britney Spears in short shorts and a tank top, being ogled by guys in the industry and in generally the consumers of this kind of content. And it's basically normalizing pedophilia and things like that as well, on top of all this other stuff. So Miley Cyrus, she has a thing in the article from Elle magazine where she's talking about how she wears her own jewelry now. Nobody gives her jewelry to wear. And her jewelry is a marijuana leaf. It's a little charm and a bottle of alcohol. So she's really breaking free from the industry. She's just going to get drunk and get real high and basically be handed around a bunch of guys at some Hollywood parties, it sounds like to me. She really broke free. That's part of the nature of the system. You grow these kids up in an environment like Disney. You oppress, and then you set them loose. You set them free when you don't need them anymore. And then they they graduate. They go from high school to college, or they go from college to the real world, and now they become the mind control puppets of the real demonic entities of the entertainment industry, specifically the music industry. So that's all this in a nutshell. And in the episode of Black Mirror, Miley Cyrus plays a mind-controlled pop star. And her brain is uploaded into a computer. And in the episode, she starts to break free of the programming. And so when she starts to break free of the programming, her handlers start monitoring what she's doing because they realize she's not taking her drugs. And when they recognize this, they forcibly inject her they basically poison her through her food. And they say she had an allergic reaction, and they send her to the hospital. And while she's in the hospital, they basically steal her brain. They steal all of her music talent from her while she's in this coma. And her brain is reduced to a few percent that's active in a robot. Long story short, this actually happened to Miley Cyrus in part, and maybe even in full. In 2014, she was hospitalized, and they said she had an allergic reaction, just like in the show. Britney Spears also didn't take her medication. She got sent to a psych ward. Kanye West, remember he had a little Donald Trump revelation on stage, canceled his tour, mental breakdown. And then what happened to Britney Spears at that time? Britney Spears shaved her head, blonde hair. What happened to Kanye West? He comes out of the psych ward. Eyes are totally glazed over. He's got the blonde hair. Roseanne even did the blonde hair. She had her breakdown, lost her show. Boom, she comes out, New York Times, blonde hair.
She's still having a bit of a breakdown. I believe she just done a video on YouTube. I've not seen it, but she was actually talking about MK Ultra. That's Roseanne Barr, So absolutely. And get this is a weird one, Ryan, because we're talking about how the parallels between Miley Cyrus's real life and the episode that she stars in Black Mirror. And just recently at Glastonbury, one of our major music festivals over here, where you see a lot of these commercialized, created artists on show, we had Miley Cyrus performing as the character she played in Black Mirror.
Really?
She performed as Ashley O.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've got the headline up here. It says Miley Cyrus performs as Black Mirror's Ashley O at Glastonbury in a raunchy performance. And I watched the Black Mirror episode that you've been talking about here. And this deals with stuff we talk about on the show a lot, the digitization of consciousness. Can that be achieved? And absolutely, the way that it's portrayed in this program is brilliant. And they totally use her consciousness to continue the career, continue making money out of this, this product, basically. And yeah, I advise anyone out there, go and check it out. It's on Netflix. I think it's one of the maybe 4th or 5th episode, but well worth watching, dude. But again, here we are now in the real world. She's pretending to be the fictional character.
Yeah, and she broke away from Hannah Montana. That's the interview she just gave after this Black Mirror episode comes out, and now she's going to play the same part, but rather than being Hannah Montana, she's going to be Ashley O. I mean, you see the same thing. I was going to mention Eminem. So many other people we've mentioned with the blonde hair, the blonde wig, going back to Marilyn Monroe, Sex Kitten, Mind Control. You see that a lot in Taylor Swift music. So it's the same story across the board. But Kev, at least I think you could agree with me, most of your listeners could agree, at least with like Miley Cyrus or Katy Perry specifically, she does like the cupcake bra. She's
Yep.
got like a candy cane, pair of underwear. It's just like candy and fluff and cotton candy and rainbows and clouds and unicorns. At least you get a little of that. And then you have to kind of look for it, like when she did Dark Horse, which was a very colorful song about like Egyptian magic and a queen that wanted, people to give her things in the video. And I watched that for the first time and I thought, that's got to be like a remix, because I watched the performance at the award show and it was basically this dark black mass. It looked like a scene from the new Sabrina show, and she played like a witch. And I'm thinking that's completely different than what I saw. So they kind of they take you down this road in the industry where it's colorful, it's kind of happy, and they try to become your friends. It's kind of like the guy that drives up to the kid playing in the street. He's got the van and he says, "I need help finding my dog. I've got some ice cream in the back." And the kid's like, "I don't know, my mom said not to talk to strangers, mister." He's like, "Well, just get in the van. Your mom said it was fine. I talked to your mom. Get in the van. We got ice cream. Help me find the dog." This character, Billie Eilish, there's no cotton candy. There's no rainbows. There's no unicorns. There's no lure you in. People have been lured in by these other pieces of bait, like Madonna, Lady Gaga. They have talent one way or another. You can argue that. I don't really care. That's not really the point here. People have been lured in by the bait that is Miley Cyrus and all of these others. Billie Eilish, who now is becoming or is going to become, mark my words, the standard in the industry, as long as something doesn't happen to her, she's going to be the new pop star that's going to replace a lot of these people in so many ways, kind of like the singer That Poppy, who basically sings as a robot, as artificial intelligence. Her song Time Is Up. But even then, that's just like robots and AI and technology. This takes us to an entirely different level, Kev. This isn't just about handlers. This isn't just about drug-induced comas. This isn't just about, sex kitten mind control. This girl, I believe, is actually possessed by a demon. And I'd like
I
to
agree with you, Ryan. I want to agree with you right off the bat here. This sounds like we're being ridiculous, somebody possessed. I challenge anyone to watch this and tell me that there's anything natural about this. And the one scene that I'm looking at right now out of one of her videos called "You Should See Me in a Crown," the whole video is just basically one solitary kind of camera shot of her, and it flicks between multiple scenes of her being crawled over by tarantulas. At one point, there's a tarantula comes out of her mouth. She wears a crown with spiders all over it.
Hey.
She's acting sexual towards the spider as well with some of her mouth gestures. And I'm telling you, this is like nothing I've ever seen before, Ryan. Like you say, this is a whole new level, dude.
I think that's a box you can check on Facebook if you're sexually attracted to spiders.
Probably. And I don't mean to be offensive to anyone who does find 8 hairy-legged creatures attractive. I don't mean to insult you, but I think you would probably agree more than even me and Ryan that what she's up to with spiders is no good.
No, it's no good. And I want to share this with you because I'm going to talk about it on my show tomorrow. And I decided to talk about it tonight on Kev Baker's show, kind of as a promo for my show specifically. Usually I save things for my show, but I want to present this to a whole other audience that might not hear my show. I watched some of her videos, and a lot of her songs, a lot of her videos are put together in an album that's coming out, her first album. She's still, I believe, 17 years old. She's almost 18, so she's very, very young. And this is her first album, right from the starting pistol firing, right from the gates, full-on demonic possession. There's no pit stop. There's no side road. There's no let's throw a cotton candy balloon in there. It's just full-on demonic possession. And that's one thing. We see that metaphorically on occasion. But in this girl's case, the song that you just brought up, Kev, "You Should See Me in a Crown." I'm going to read you some of the lyrics, all right? I printed this out today. She says, "You should see me in a crown. I'm going to run this nothing town. Watch me make 'em bow, one by one by one by one by one." Before that, she says, "Cold in my kingdom sighs fell for these ocean eyes." Ocean Eyes was the name of the song she did when she looked like an attractive young lady. Blonde hair. She looked like she was at least conscious. You could see life in her eyes. And then when she got really famous with that song, I think that's when she became possessed. And they showed this possession. Like, this is all in the video. There's a song called When the Party's Over. You could type that in maybe and show listeners, When the Party's Over. And in that song, she's sitting in a room and she's looking at a glass of black liquid. It's the black goo on a white cube table. She's all in white. She has chains around her neck with a lock. So she's basically someone's property. She's locked up. And about a minute into the song, she takes the drink. She consumes the black goo, and she starts to kind of contort and convulse a little bit. And then, just like if you're watching a movie about demonic possession, she contorts, and then just inhumanly stops. The demon has control. And as she's singing in the background, you can hear the voice become distorted, which is an obvious sign of the demonic influence coming through. And then she opens her eyes at the camera, and there's nobody home. The girl is totally possessed. So they show the possession. Maybe it was literal, maybe it's metaphoric. They show this in the video When the Party's Over. Now we fast forward to You Should See Me in a Crown, and let's listen to those lyrics one more time. You should see me in a crown. I'm going to run this nothing town. Watch me make 'em bow, one by one, by one, by one, by one. You should see me in a crown. Your silence is my favorite sound. I read that, and I listened to it, and I watched the imagery. And I wouldn't recommend the average person going to watch this. If you're kind of squeamish, I wouldn't watch it, but maybe you want to anyway. You watch this video. It's spiders, real spiders, they say. They just said they didn't CGI this.
Oh, that's real. They're definitely real, dude, didn't they?
Yeah, they're real. The thing came out of their mouth, the tarantula.
Yeah.
So check this out, Kev. I want to show you an image, and you can maybe look this up to have it ready here in a moment. If you type in Colin DePlancy, Collin, Colin, D-D-E, Plancy, P-L-A-N-C-Y, and type in Ball, B-A-E-L. And you'll see an image from Colin DePlancy's Dictionary Infernal, published in Paris in 1863. You'll see an image of Ball. And you can put that up on screen, or listeners want to go look at it themselves. I can show it to you right now. That down there is what Ball looks like, according to Colin DePlancy in this dictionary back in 1863, this Dictionary Infernal. Now you take a good look at that. 3 faces. Ball the demon typically appears as a toad, as a cat, or as a man, but with 3 faces. Billie Eilish, just to start us off here, did a photo shoot for Garage Magazine where she had 3 faces. One of the faces was a robotic face. So we're back to the robots. In this video where she's got the spiders in the crown, I'm watching this, and maybe there is a spirit that guides us, Kev, because I'm sitting here and something said to me, not a voice, but I just got a feeling, pick up your book, Occult Arcana, and look at the section on the depictions of demons and see if any of that relates to what you're watching on this video with You Should See Me in a Crown. So I went and picked up the book, and I just started glancing through it. And then I saw, oh, there's Ball. And Ball has a crown. He's got 3 faces, and he has the legs of a spider. And Ball is one of the first kings of hell. And so that might seem, minor at first until you actually do a little bit of research into what this girl's name is. Her name is Billie Eilish. That's the character. Check this out. In the Gravity Falls show, the demon is called Bill Cipher. He's a Hat Man demon. Bill, according to Satanists, even people like Mark Passio, is a name that is typically given to the devil, Bill, or some variation of Bill. Bill Cipher is the demon in Gravity Falls. And if you take the word Bill, obviously Billy, what about the last name, Elish? Well, when I hear Elish, I think of the Enuma Elish, the Mesopotamian 7 tablets of creation. And the name is taken from the first line, when on high. So her last name translates to on high, or something being on high. Now, what's the first name? Billy. So it's Billy on high. But what is Billy? Well, in Mesopotamia, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Canaanites, they all worshiped this god, this deity named Ashur, Marduk, or Baal. And Baal is spelled in a variety of ways. Baal is spelled B-A''A''Al. That's the Hebrew. It means Lord. Bael, Baal, which is in the dictionary infernal that I showed you. And then you have the other spelling, Bel, Bell, or it may be substituted Bill. So her name literally means Bell, Baal, demon, devil, Lord on high. That's the girl's stage name. And then in the video, Kev, she has the crown, she has the spiders, she has the three faces in the photo shoot, and she's singing what I would imagine to be something that the devil would say, that a powerful demon would say to people that are subordinate to them. You should see me in a crown. I'm going to run this nothing town. Watch me make them bow one by one by one by one. This is not a metaphor, my friend.
No. Like I said to you, there's something different about this character, this entity, and that other one that we were talking about there. The name of it is, I'm trying to think of the name of the one, but it's the one where she basically has the full possession. She arches the back and things. But not only that, multiple times throughout the video, she appears like a black-eyed child.
She
totally
does the really great
blacked out
point.
eyes. Yeah, and there's something not right about her. And not having a go at the fact she has Tourette's. That's something I wasn't aware of. I wouldn't criticize anyone for something like that, but there's something not right about her. And the closest I can come to explaining it is a full-blown possession.
Yeah, it's a full-blown possession. Her name literally means, Bill is another variation of Baal, and then she has the classic imagery of Baal. I'm not pulling things together here. I'm looking into old occult manuscripts on demons and demonology. We're taking the images and we're comparing them. I'm not looking for it. I just happened to come across it watching a video the other night. It's the same imagery. It's the spiders. It's the crown. If she had flies buzzing around her while she was singing, I would think that she was Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, Lord of Decay and Death. But she has the spiders, and she has, one even crawls out of her mouth. She has the crown, and she's singing like a king, like a lord of the infernal world.
Do you know what it's kind of reminiscent of as well? The character in Stranger Things, Billy, the main one that gets possessed.
Great point. I didn't think
he becomes kind of dark-eyed, kind of gaunt, drawn, he's a husk. He's just a vehicle for this entity that's using him. And that's exactly what I get from this character here. And you should see me in a crown.
I don't know how good I would look in a crown, but a Baal loves crowns because Baal is a king of hell. That's a really great point you made there, Kev, because I didn't think of that because, yeah, he's the character in Stranger Things Season 3 that is possessed and basically used as a conduit to bring the other people to the demon. So, there are so many different connections. The video that you're referring to is the one I watched this 24 times. And this thing is so powerful. I got to be honest with you. I clicked it a few additional times just because I wanted to listen to it, not because I was analyzing it. That's how powerful this is. This stuff is so powerful that I've been singing this crap all day. I was singing it yesterday, not out loud, but it's in my head. I can hear her voice. This stuff is really powerful. That song you're referring to is called Bury a Friend. And like I said before, you listen to some other artists like maybe Eminem. He's got a song called Monster with Rihanna. Just temporarily they bring up, like he says, I'm going to conjure. I'm going to keep conjuring. And then a demon speaks. And he did the song called My Darling. And he talks to a demon. He tries to kill himself. He wants to end himself, something Billie Eilish says as well. And then you have other people that, they make deals with the devil. Some people say it's metaphor. And you just have to, you find pieces of that here and there, and it all comes and connects together. In this case, there's no connecting anything. There's no pieces here or there. The whole song, Bury a Friend, is literally her as a demon communicating with herself. It's her communicating with a demon from the start to the finish. And I'll start us off because I know we've got a few minutes until break. I don't want to jump too far into this. If you listen to the lyrics, Kev, have you heard the whole song?
Yes, I have, and I'm looking at the lyrics right here, my friend.
Maybe you could just read the intro and tell me if that doesn't sound like, well, a demon communicating to someone who has a contract, a pact with them.
Absolutely. And it says here, what do you want from me? Why don't you run from me? What are you wondering? What do you know? Why aren't you scared of me? Why do you care for me? When we all fall asleep, where do we go?
And that's the name of the new album. When we all fall asleep, where do we go? When we all die, where do we go? Do we go to heaven? Do we go to hell? She actually mentions that in another song called All Good Girls Go to Hell. She says Lucifer is lonely. That's the line. And she says Peter is on vacation. So this is an opportunity. Who's Peter? It's St. Peter. St. Peter is given the keys to heaven, the gold key and the silver key. One is the command of the church has, and the other is the command of God in heaven. And those two keys, something that was also displayed by Coldplay at the Super Bowl in San Francisco, the Golden Game, the Golden Gate Bridge, the portal to another world, another dimension. He's on the Golden Cross, and he talks about St. Peter in the song Viva la Vie, or however you pronounce it. She mentions Peter as well. Who was writing this? I mean, this is something that, like, you'd have to hire an Aleister Crowley. You'd have to hire a demonologist to write this crap. Right. This isn't written by a 16-year-old kid, or they say, actually, it's official, in the industry, her brother writes a lot of her songs, and her brother's about as young as she is, maybe a little bit older.
Before we go to break, I mean, this isn't from a 16-year-old. Step on the glass, staple your tongue. Ah, bury a friend, try to wake up. Ah, cannibal class, killing the sun. Bury a friend, I want to end. Well, you're going to have to start calling Ryan the postman because he always delivers. Yes, indeed, Ryan Gable from the secretteachings.info. It's a show that we independently, separately, have been yearning to do. We've been looking forward to hooking up to do this. We've totally gone unscripted, and that's the way myself and Ryan roll. We've got lots of little factoids. Ryan's got his deep research, and then the bigger research into the bigger picture of all this occult and magical workings that we see played out before our very eyes on TV screens in the cinema, and more often than not nowadays when it comes to the music scene. And we've been talking about the newest princess on the block, and she is from a different cut altogether. Billie Eilish is who we're talking about here. And Ryan, we could go in many directions from here, but you were talking about some of the lyrics in some of her songs and some of the other stuff. We're going to get into some of the symbology here as well. So where do we want to go from here, dude?
Well, let's look at that song, Bury a Friend.
Yes.
I don't know if I have any of the images, but this is one of the darkest videos I think I've ever seen.
This is the one with the black-eyed kind of child. It's, very disturbing.
You read the intro to that song before we went to break, and it's a demon speaking. What do you want from me? Why don't you run from me? What are you wondering? What do you know? Et cetera, et cetera. The next verse is, say it, spit it out. What is it exactly? Your pain is the amount cleaning you out. Am I satisfactory? That's the demon asking, do you have enough to pay me? And what am I providing you? If what I'm providing you is enough, or do you want more? And so she says, today I'm thinking about the things that are deadly. She, in the video, cuts her throat. The way I'm drinking you down, the demon possessing her, consuming her life force, her energy. Then she says, like I want to drown, like I want to end me. It's a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, well, at this point, 17-year-old, talking about suicide. Very popular. 13 Reasons Why on Netflix. Suicide rates are through the roof. And like you said, Kev, this next line was not, I don't think, written by a 17-year-old girl. This is really dark. Step on the glass, staple your tongue, bury a friend, try to wake up. Cannibal class, killing the sun, bury a friend, I want to end me. And so then it proceeds from there. And there's another section. It's the whole thing. I don't want to read through every lyric because that might be boring, but it's the entire song. There isn't like a thing of fluff, crammed in. There's not like cotton candy crammed in here somewhere like a Katy Perry song. Verse 2, keep you in the dark. What had you expected? Me, the demon speaking, to make you my art and make you a star and get you connected? So the demon agrees to meet her. I'll meet you in the park. I'll be calm and collected. I won't be angry. But we knew right from the start that you'd fall apart because I'm too expensive. She made a deal with one of the kings of hell. She made a deal that even the most powerful sorcerer would not be able to undo without undoing themselves.
And the
This is
video itself,
17
I mean, you see black gloved hands coming in and almost remaking her, reshaping her. The black eyes swap out for some evil, demonic, yellow kind of tinted eyes. It's weird.
It's so disturbing. And this video has everything. It has demonic possession without metaphor. It has the handlers. Those are the hands. Very reminiscent of the Katy Perry song Bon Appetit, where the handlers are molding her body. She's a piece of meat, like Lady Gaga in the meat suit. And it all connects to Marina Abramovic and the bloodbath, like Eminem took a bloodbath. And then Katy Perry in that video is boiled alive. Cannibalism. She mentions that in the song. Cannibal class, killing the sun, bury a friend, I want to end me. And then the song gets...
Even one of the scenes I'm looking at here, Ryan, you've got 1, 2, 3, 7, 8...
The hands.
11 syringes in her back.
Yeah.
You see this multiple times.
Yeah, they put the drugs into her. That's right.
Yeah.
That's another huge aspect of this, just like Miley Cyrus was drugged and just like she was drugged in the Black Mirror episode as well. So, yeah, you have got everything. Demonic possession, handlers, drugs. It's all in this video. And the part that I swear, Kev, I got goosebumps, not because it's good music or because it's, artistic, but because I feel like I'm pretty aware of what I'm watching. I'm watching a girl possessed by one of the most powerful demons, Baal. And the camera turns, but she is elevated. She's levitating. Her eyes are completely black. And as it spins and her, she's upside down, her hair is hanging down. She's got that sense about her that there's nothing controlling her body except a demon. She's not there. And she says, this is the lyric, the debt I owe, gotta sell my soul. 'Cause I can't say no. No, I can't say no. Then my limbs all froze and my eyes won't close and I can't say no, I can't say no. That is the same exact thing that Eminem talks about in his song Rain Man. I can't feel my legs or my brain. Nice to meet you. Hi, my name is, I forgot my name. And he says, my aim was not to become what I became with this level of fame. I'm possessed by these demons. I'm possessed by these devils. My new name is, and then he pauses and then another voice comes in and says, Rain Man. I've talked about that in my book, The Technological Elixir. The summoning of this entity, the Rain Man, it's something that is across from Bob Dylan to Kanye West. Just another name for these entities, another name for these demonic forces. And that's something else that you find in the Venom movie, where Eminem at the very end of the song does the Venom song for the movie, where Venom says he's going to eat your legs and eat your arms, and he's the demon. He's the parasite in control of Eddie Brock, where they created this symbiotic relationship.
And so Venom, you could probably tie in the black goo symbology as 100%. Well.
100%.
Yeah, big time.
100%. You're so right. And actually, Miley Cyrus, that thing you sent me where she's performing, that was in Scotland, right?
Down in England, Glastonbury.
She's got the classical black leather pants on, and she's got all the rings very similar to what Billie Eilish wears as well.
And that was the open experiment of 5G on the music festival. Yes, they were running a 5G trial weekend for all of the festival goers, so that they could stream the concert live. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Well, Kev, if I'd have known that, I'd have flown over there. We could have gone. We could have got to see Miley Cyrus strut around on stage as a mind-controlled pop star and had our brains fried by extremely dangerous 5G technology.
But if we'd done that, Ryan, we would have to put on hold our plans to storm Area 51.
we would have to do that, absolutely. We might not. Go ahead.
No, I'm just laughing. I've got to laugh because, folks, you know how I roll. This is some of the darkest kind of stuff I've seen in a while when it comes to this little pop star who's been played in young girls' bedrooms across the world. One of the videos that I watched alone had over 200 million views.
This girl's
pop she's star. Idolized. She is the next pop princess. Forget your Ariana Grande and, like you say, Katy Perry. That was mind control blatantly in our faces, but at least it was warm and fluffy and fuzzy, and she was nice Katy. There's nothing appealing about this little character.
No, I mean, I mean this literally. 99% in my view, my intuition, this stuff is real. I think the girl is literally possessed by a demon.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're hiding it in plain sight. And where does that tell us about where we are right now? You know, as a society, the fact that we are punching holes in our reality to these other worlds. Call it the upside down, call it the mirror world. And we know that throughout time, people of various civilizations, of various time periods, have always tried to contact these entities that lie just out of our range of vision, just beyond in another dimension, another parallel reality. And here we are now at a time when we have technology that they boast can punch holes into these other realms. And we're seeing what looks to be like a move on from the symbology that Madonna and all of them made famous with the hand over the eye and all the other stuff we used to point to and talk about, to where we're now. It's almost like we're watching the full-blown possession of people. It's a change in the game, dude.
Have you seen The Conjuring?
Yes, I have. Yes.
The second one?
No, I'm not sure if I've seen the second one.
Well, if you've seen any, you, Kev, or anyone listening, if you've seen any movie with demonic possession, there's typically a scene where they ask the demon's name, and that's really important. I go back to that Eminem song, Rain Man. He says, I forgot my name, and then he eventually says, my new name is Rain Man, in a different voice. The name is really important because the name signifies ownership. Just like in the Bible, Adam is given the ability to name the animals. He's given dominion over the animals. In demonology and in occultism, when you have the demon's name, you have power over the demon. In The Conjuring 2, Lorraine Warren goes up to the room at the very end and she demands the name of the demon. Tell me your name, demon. Normally you'd have to say in the name of Jesus Christ, in the name of Tetragrammaton, etc., all the different various names you could use. Tell me your name, demon. And the demon has to comply. So the demon complies and tells her the name, but you don't find out, that she already knew the name. The demon had told her the name. She had asked the demon in a previous part of the movie, and she had scratched it into a Bible and had torn the Bible apart. So she goes back and she knows the demon's name because she sees it. The demon's name is Valak. When you have the demon's name, you have power over the demon. And I don't mean this in some sensational fear kind of a porn, hyper over the top radio topic today. Like, I'm not trying to express it in that way. What I'm trying to express is you watch this stuff with the Billie Eilish girl in particular, and you watch the imagery in that video where she's got the crown and the spiders, and you see her photo shoots. There's a lot of mind control, but I think she's actually possessed by the demon ball. And when you know the name of the demon, you have power over it. That's why this is important. In this case, we might not know what's going on with Miley Cyrus or Amanda Bynes or any of these other pop stars, Lady Gaga, mind control and drugs and sex and all that kind of stuff. This girl, I think, is possessed by a demon, and now you know the name of the demon. The demon's name is Baal, and now it does not have control over you anymore. Baal can be sent back to the deepest, darkest pit of hell, and we can do that right here on the Kev Baker Show and on the Secret Teachings.
And this video, they even show it's like a cinematic way of showing the shapeshift. It's like a rattling, a very fast flashing of the scene where she's kind of shape-shifting from one position slightly to another. And it's almost as if it's showing you her being indwelt with this thing. They're not hiding this, folks.
No. And you notice the part where the hands come out and they're pulling her further and further down. So they pull her from the world, the place where she's staying, into like this, I guess like an apartment complex, into the facility, the laboratory. And then they pull her down again, and it gets darker and darker. And then at the end, she's in a complete pitch black room where she's being fondled and controlled. They're pulling her down to hell. That's the metaphor there. That's the symbolism. That's about the only metaphor there really is in that video. Everything else is she's under mind control, but she's possessed by a demon as well. And like you said, Kev, it's not even hidden. It's just like, hey, here it is. You don't have to look past the Candyland game that Katy Perry plays in one of her songs. You don't have to look past the rainbows and Skittles. It's just full-blown demonic possession, straight out the gate, 17-year-old first album. There it is.
Absolutely, dude. And it is. It's Stranger Times. The road from Hawkins to hell on earth is paved with pop stars and portals, it would appear. This has been absolutely brilliant tonight, dude. And I want to quickly get your take on something else going on in the world.
I got to go because I got to go storm Area 51 here, Kev.
This is exactly what I was wanting to talk to you about. You know, usually, being an ex-military man, I would advise us to plan this in private. You know, away from the prying eyes of the enemy we're after. However, that ship has sailed, or that post has flown around the world, you know, while everyone was asleep. Area 51, Ryan, come on, man. What's going on, dude? Am I losing my marbles here? What the hell is wrong with people?
I've been out there to that gate where you can take the picture where Wackenhut is ready to whack you if you cross the line. And I have my picture out there. In fact, the image you used tonight of me, you photoshopped me out of the image. That was an image of me at that Area 51 gate. And if you drive out there, it's to Rachel, Nevada. It's about a 2-hour drive from Las Vegas. And if you drive out to that gate, it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive on a dirt road with sensors and anything you can imagine that lets the U.S. military know somebody's coming down that road. And they're very used to people coming down that road and taking pictures. These are how many people now, Kev? Like 2 million plus?
Yeah. I mean, last time I checked, there was well over the million. And I would imagine because of the virility of the story now, yeah, there will be. But what really gets me, Ryan, and I have joked about this Area 51 thing since it started to do the rounds, but I was really taken aback listening to our good friend, Clyde Lewis, just last week. And it wasn't Clyde what he was saying. He was very much on the same song sheet as us, you know. However, there was not one, but numerous callers to the show who were taking this very seriously indeed, and were really kind of promoting this as an opportunity to make some kind of stand against the federal government for whatever reason that they were trying to use to justify this. And not only that, one caller was even saying, you know, if you're a parent, bring your child along.
Oh, great. Just bring
you put these security in a position where are they really going to open up on mothers, fathers, and their children? And it got me thinking, Ryan, it really did, because, yeah, we can laugh and joke about this. But what about the people who have been triggered, the people who might actually decide that this is an opportunity to make a name for myself, bring the truth about Area 51, despite the fact there's nothing at Area 51 anyway, in most likelihood. I mean, I didn't appreciate people in America would actually take this so seriously. And I know it's only a small fraction, but it's only going to take a couple to cause a real problem.
Well, remember when people were going up to Freedom Ridge and they ruined it for the rest of everybody else because the government bought it and shut it down? And you can go up to the gate now, one of the gates. If you get out to that gate an hour off of Highway 375, it's an hour in the middle of the desert. You have to drive, if you got past that gate and past the security firms and past the U.S. military and past all the sensors, you have to drive an additional 40 miles into the desert just to get to the actual gate that gets you into the base, 80 to 90% of which we're told is completely underground. So if you did get into the base, you teleported there, or as they say, they run into the base like Naruto with their head down and arms behind their back, which is ironic because that's how they're going to be carried out of the facility if they cross the line in a squad car in one of those white Jeeps. If they do get in there, what are they going to do? They're going to grab the first guy who's cleaning toilets and say, tell me what happened to the wreckage of Roswell back in 1947. This guy wasn't even alive in 1947. It's so compartmentalized. It's like the Manhattan Project. 10 people and Robert Oppenheimer knew what was going on. People in government didn't know what was going on. People that worked at Los Alamos didn't know what they were working on. You think people that work at Area 51 today, let alone in 1947, know anything about Roswell? And besides that, that's only a rumor that anything was taken to Roswell. The story goes, officially, that anything from Roswell was taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I've even heard, where I grew up in Tampa, some of that material was taken to MacDill Air Force Base.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, you have been there.
That makes sense. I've been to MacDill. I stayed 6 weeks in the MacDill Inn, let me tell you, Ryan, when I was in the Army and we were working with the U.S. military. But yeah, they've got a huge Air Force Command Center there. You know, I'd imagine.
Did you see the aliens, though?
I can't tell you that, dude, or else, I won't, I'll be kind of taken away and I won't be able to storm Area 51 with you.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe you can tell me in private or something, you know.
Private nowadays? Is anything private anymore? But no, I mean, this whole thing, dude. I mean, if there's people out there, really think twice about this, folks. It doesn't end well. It just doesn't end well.
You know, you're probably, if you go to this thing, your biggest enemy is going to be high desert temperatures. And you know, people that have gone to this, they've ruined ufology in so many ways. You know, there used to be the black mailbox. You could go to that. I went to that. I saw it. I got a picture with it. And then the black mailbox got taken away. It got taken away because people went out to the desert and they put food in a mailbox in the middle of the desert in 100+ degree weather, and it rotted and it attracted critters and insects. So we got rid of the black mailbox. We got rid of Freedom Ridge. What they're going to probably do is if anybody shows up to this, they're just going to go ahead and push everybody back to the highway. Now you can't even get up to the gate to take a picture. For nothing. For what? Because you think you are justified, even if you are, in seeing what's in that base? Even if you are, okay, idealistically, you're entitled to what's in that base. The U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Army don't care about how you are entitled. They will open fire. They are authorized to use deadly force. What is the point? If you want to see alien spacecraft, go somewhere else. Go to places where they supposedly took it. Look, just, I don't know, you can walk up to Wright-Patterson. You can look into Wright-Patterson. You can look into MacDill. I've been in MacDill myself when I was in Civil Air Patrol. I didn't see any aliens there. And those are places where they supposedly took the wreckage. Nobody took wreckage to Area 51, supposedly. That was just a myth. It was a rumor to divert attention from where it was supposedly more documented to have been taken. And even then, none of that really matters. This just seems like a cheap publicity stunt, and now people are making a profit off of it. It's ridiculous, Kevin. It's an embarrassment to ufology, in my view.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. You know, people will head to the desert and all they'll have to show for it is this lousy T-shirt because there's bound to be some scam artist there selling some merch on the back of this, dude.
Hey, I'm wondering if the Blue Chickens are going to get together down there, possibly.
Well, I was actually trying to make a case for Wilcock and Good and Sather, you know, being the first ones leading the charge for Area 51. And then when they look back to see where the kind of reinforcements are, nobody's there. But that was just my fantasy that I should never have shared live on air.
Even if you would have thought it in private, if you had Elon Musk's brain chip, he'd have known what you thought anyway.
Well, yeah, that's another thing I want to get your take on, because before the show I was telling you I've been trying as hard as I can to take the positives out of what is one of the biggest stories ever when you think about it, Ryan, because here we are, humanity on the cusp of this brain chip that we've spoke about as a people for decades now, the potential for this happening. And here we are. And not only that, but by this time next year, we're talking about it being commercially available. Now, I get it. He's a good salesman, and obviously he's going to tell you all of the advantages first, and nobody's going to turn their nose up at ending brain injuries and dementia and allowing people that may be paralyzed to walk again. Obviously not. However, it's almost like a Trojan horse for the mind. But what's your take on it, dude?
I agree with you. It's a Trojan horse. And I think about Google developing the same thing, because they are. Google's developing the same thing. Facebook is developing the same thing. They're doing it at their Building 8 Skunk Works. They're building mind control technology where they can literally connect things to your brain and read your thoughts. That's Regina Dugan, former DARPA executive, Department of Defense.
And a tie-in with tonight's show, they're also mapping the real world and calling it Mirror World.
Mirror World.
Yes.
Oh, why? Wonder why they'd be doing that. So they have all these programs and projects to map the real world, replace organic life across the board, plants, animals, humans, and Google's doing it. Facebook's doing it. Yeah, Elon Musk is doing it. He's the one that's popularized it. But my issue is Google's doing the same thing as Musk. And if there are a couple of people that are in need, perhaps, of a brain chip, it seems so idealistic. We've got a brain chip. Everybody who's got a brain injury, we're going to fix them. Some people might not want to be fixed. Some people might want to live out their lives like that. So that's a pretty big assumption. That's just the way they're virtue signaling and trying to sell it, like you said. But if you take it to another level where you actually think about what they're telling you and you think about what they're actually doing, and you think about other companies are doing the exact same thing. These are companies like Google and Facebook that, despite what you might think of, let's use Alex Jones as an example. Like him or not, you don't like him, doesn't really matter. You can't post a link to InfoWars on Facebook. You can get blocked, well, you will get blocked by your friends, but you'll get banned, and you can possibly be banned for life from Facebook because you post a link to InfoWars. So you have Google and Facebook and all these companies censoring what you're allowed to post, what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to do. They want to build mind control technology, and then it's going to be sold to you as, we just want to help quadriplegics and people that have brain injuries. Is what the companies that don't want you to be able to express your voice on the internet, on digital platforms, in a digital environment, a digital community. These are the companies that then want to put a brain chip inside of your skull, inside the brain tissue. I'm supposed to trust that's okay. Not to mention the fact that Musk's own company, Tesla, and then Facebook and Google have all suffered, along with so many other companies, major data breaches. They can't even keep your phone number safe. How are they going to keep real-time information extracted from the brain safe? There are so many different questions here, and it's going to be, as it is, rolled out under the guise of helping people, small percentage. And then eventually, as they're having people come in and they're giving out free brain chips, and they want to be able to, drill a hole in your head, put the chip in, and then it transmits Bluetooth to a computer connected to your ear so that you can control your phone. That was on, I think, CNN, BBC, and NBC News, right?
Yep.
Pulsating radiation. I mean, babies have a thin skull, right? And that's why they're more susceptible to radio frequencies and electromagnetic fields like the Wi-Fi and the 5G and things like that. So you have a skull. That's your last line of defense. They're just going to go past the skull and put the chip into your brain, pulsating radiation inside of your brain. And that's okay. Well, I guess it'll be safe because the tumor will just grow around the microchip. I mean, this is insane, Kev. And to think that these companies want to do anything except censor and to control, that's what they're really trying to do, control reality. You have to be insane to see the long list of things these companies have done and these people have done. And then to think that anything's going to be different with a brain implant.
We're already in the midst of what I'm calling the algorithm wars. And these algorithms are able to push us in certain directions, to think certain ways, which in turn then over time expresses itself as us changing our behavior. And this is all via the external portal to that mirror world, the digital world, via search engines and social media. Do we really want them in our heads, folks? Ryan Gable from thesecretteachings.info. Check him out. Remember, listen to the show on Fringe FM. I'll be back tomorrow. So for another night, wherever you are, be it this dimension or another, make it TFR. And Denny, touch that dial.